Okay, so I've repositioned my phone so that you can actually see, hopefully this doesn't jiggle around too much, where I'm cutting and how I'm doing the cut. Now, less than ideal for wood, I'm going to use a hacksaw like you're going to be using. And the idea when you do the cut is to bring a finger, a fingernail, a knuckle, something like that, up against your saw blade, so that your saw blade, so you're pushing in against your hand just slightly. And you actually want the saw to start at the side of the line. About here would be good. But it's depending on what you're comfortable with. You don't want to cross the line. You want to be close enough to it that when you cut, you can tell if it's moving this way or that way to make sure that you're making a straight cut. Now it's true, normally when you see people use saws for wood or anything else, they cut like this. They start across the large surface and cut it that way. Now that would be okay if you're not worried about being accurate, but in order to cut accurately this way, you'd have to have eyes that are way over here because you can't actually see the line that's on this side. So that's the advantage of starting over here, which is a little bit more difficult to get the saw to start, but you can actually line the saw blade up with triangulate the saw blade, if you will, on the two lines. So I'm going to start the saw. Now it's wood, so it's going to make even more dust than the aluminum, but you'll have the same issue with the aluminum block when you're cutting it, is to keep the filings away so you can see where your line is. Now this one's going to cut much faster than your aluminum, which is a good thing because then the video won't be too long. And again, you want to keep the saw lightly controlled. Once you're into the, in this case the wood, but when you're into the aluminum, if you push the saw this way, you'll feel that the blade is binding up. Same thing if you do this. So that's what I mean when I was talking earlier. You have to have a light grip so you can feel these changes as it happens with the saw. Now what I'm going to try to do is cut triangulate it so that I'm cutting all the way down to the bottom here, right? Then I'm going to turn the saw or the work around, and I'm actually going to come over to the other side here, which on my wood shop place is not ideal. Can you still see? Not really, eh? Let's move this over here like this. Okay. Now I'm going to come on the same idea from this direction, still on this waist side. Keeping the saw nice and straight, close to the line. Till I meet in the middle, see? Now we'll come back over here because I'm right-handed, so it works better over here. That's another thing too. You want to make sure you're as comfortable as possible when you're working with this stuff. Now you'll see I've got a groove here and a groove here. And that guarantees, I shouldn't say guarantees, but gives you a better chance of getting a nice straight cut, because now these two grooves, your hacksaw blade will be guided by those. And it's just a matter of sawing straight across with a light touch so you can feel if you're pushing the saw either way and it's going crooked. Watch, of course. And then just push your saw through. Don't apply too much pressure. and you should be able to get a pretty nice straight cut this way. So, and you can see that didn't take very long for me. Of course, I'm only cutting a piece of wood, so although it will take you longer to cut through aluminum, you'll actually be surprised, or I hope you'll be surprised, that it's not as long as you might think. And by trying to stroke faster or push harder will not accomplish the goal any faster. There may be some marginal difference, but if I take my square and I check my work now, I can see that I've got a, almost perfect cut. Very little bit of cleanup to do with the file, and then I'll be able to move on to the next step.